See's Candies is an American manufacturer and distributor of candy that opened in 1921.
Oh, hi.
Happy anniversary, Hannah.
But it's not our anniversary, Jack.
So what? Let's have some anyhow.
Thank you so much.
See's, famous old-time candies.
See's Candies was founded by Charles C., his wife Florence, and his mother Mary in Los Angeles, California in 1921. Charles C., a Canadian immigrant, was raised near Gananoque, Ontario, where his parents ran a summer resort called Tremont Park. C. went to college to learn pharmacy and eventually ran 2 drugstores in the mining town of Timmins, Ontario. When C's business was both destroyed in a summer forest fire, he left pharmacy and became a chocolate salesman. One of the most successful Canadian candy companies was a chain of shops called Laura Secord. C's studied Secord and determined that he could begin a similar chain. But he chose to leave Canada and start over in California. In 1921, C. took his wife and his 2 children and his 65-year-old mother, Mary C., to Los Angeles, which was then a thriving town in the midst of great growth. C. soon found a business partner, James W. Reed, and together they opened the first C's Candy Shop. Mary C. was evidently a great home confectioner, and her son used many of her recipes. Mary had developed the recipes that became the foundation of the C's candy business while helping her husband's hotel on Tremont Island in Ontario. More than that, Mary C. became the symbol of the new company, and the image of a grandmotherly C. was used in much advertising to embody the old-fashioned homemade qualities of C's candy. In the 1920s, before large-scale refrigerated distribution was available, there were dozens of small candy makers like C's across Los Angeles. Despite the local competition, C's seemed to immediately distinguish itself, and only a few years after its founding, the company had more than 10 shops in the city. The C's production facility had a growing number of employees who worked in the kitchen, packed candies, and made deliveries. The company began an innovative marketing program in the late 1920s using distinctive Harley-Davidson motorcycles for deliveries. The motorcycles were fitted with a large sidecar embossed on all sides with a black and white C's logo. The neat black and white motif was woven through the C's company. Employees wore white uniforms piped in black, and the storefronts too were painted crisp white, and the C's name in black on the awnings and in the windows. The family had opened the first C's Candy Shop and Kitchen at 135 Northwestern Avenue in Los Angeles in November of 1921. They had 12 shops by the mid-1920s and operated 30 shops during the Great Depression. By the end of the 1920s, the company was flourishing and had begun building a $100,000 candy-making factory on Los Angeles West Washington Boulevard. During the Great Depression, C's had to reduce the prices of its candies sharply. The price per pound had been around 80 cents in the late 20s, and Charles C. dropped it to just 50 cents so that he could maintain sales. The company rented the buildings for its shops, and C. also pleaded with his landlords to accept a reduced rent. In the mid-1930s, the company began looking at expansion beyond Los Angeles. In spite of its belt-tightening, See's was doing well. The small chain had grown to about 30 shops. Charles C. went on an exploratory trip to San Francisco in 1935, and in 1936, the company opened its first store there on 10th Street. By the end of 1936, See's had 9 shops in San Francisco, and the company formed a subsidiary to run them. During World War II, sugar, butter, and other ingredients were rationed, and many imported ingredients were scarce. The company could not get enough raw materials to produce all the candy it could sell. It would have been possible to substitute some lower quality ingredients for the restricted items, but the company instead chose to make a limited amount of candy with its tightened supplies. Consequently, its stores were open only a few hours each day, and the customers had to wait in line, hoping to get in before the shop was sold out. Founder Charles C. died in 1949, and the presidency of the company was passed to his son Lawrence. The company embarked on a new marketing plan. It began opening See's candy shops in the shopping malls. By 1960, the company had 124 shops spread across California. See's had 2 manufacturing plants, one in Southern and one in Northern California, and the company as a whole employed approximately 1,000 people. Between 1960 and 1970, See's began expanding into neighboring states. See's would open stores in Arizona, Washington, and Oregon, and by 1971, the See's chain had grown to over 150 shops across the western states and in Hawaii. The company had a product line of more than 60 varieties of candy. Florence C., founder Charles C.'s eldest son, died in 1969 at the age of 57. The presidency of the company then passed to Harry C., Lawrence's younger brother. In 1972, the C family decided to sell the company, and the company was sold to Berkshire Hathaway for $25 million. Since then, the See's Candy Company primarily sells its products in its own stores and those of fellow Berkshire Hathaway subsidiary Nebraska Furniture Mart. See's Candies also is available in its stores in a number of airports in the United States. They operate over 200 stores in 21 states. See's also offers its product in select markets and kiosks at malls and other shopping centers. They also have an online store. On March 28, 2020, See's Candies suspended operations citing the current COVID-19 pandemic and stated that it had closed all of its stores until further notice, which would be about 2 months later when they reopened. It was the first time the company had shut down operations since World War II, when it became difficult to acquire sugar and other ingredients due to the war effort. Thank you for watching. If you like this content, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Thanks.